questions first then. But we've been going long enough with no actual directions, so this is the official IIA podcast. I'm your host, Alex Gagnon. And with me today, we got three guests from three different parts of the country right now. From about 10 feet away from me tops, it's Ukraine-Russians owner Quinn Klepper. How you doing, buddy?
Hello. I'm doing well.
All right. Our next guest is the owner of the German Toxic Kings. It's Alex Pavic.
Hello there. How are you?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. And our final guest, who is currently in the middle of his shift, but he's so kind to lend us a bit of his time. It's Shiv Patel. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Doing good. So we are now halfway through season 8 already. It's amazing that we've gone this long without recording anything, but when in 2020, things get lost very quickly. But yeah, it's been a weird season so far. There's been a couple teams who have really cemented themselves as the front runners for the championship this year. And there's quite a little battle going on up there, as well as in the relegation picture, which we'll also get to at some point today. But the first thing I want to do and ask you all is how have you all felt about the first half of the season here? Both whether it's just your own team you want to talk about or just the season as a whole. Any one of you can lead off on that.
Well, for my own team, I'm just a little frustrated that we keep coming one goal short of a win. It seems in every single game that we play.
That has been the theme, hasn't it?
Yeah.
There's been a couple teams toward the bottom of the table who have really just struggled in those close games. The Moonlanders are another one of those teams, but we'll get to their trade in a little bit here. Alex, how has your team been faring through the first 15 here?
I want to say we've been doing pretty well. Obviously, with Domitian coming back, we've been doing well in the defensive region, and I feel like my offense this year has also gotten a lot better with the addition of why am I forgetting his name? My new pick this year.
Ah, yes, the absolute unit himself.
Yes, the absolute unit. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with how this year has been going. Obviously, started off a little slow, but in the end, it doesn't even matter.
And I do want to come back to Domitian in a second here, but first I just want to ask real quick, Shiv, with your team sitting in fourth right now, team 4-1, how's your team been faring?
Honestly, I like how my team's been playing so far this year. There's a couple of games I wish we could have won, so that would have been in first, but
yeah, it's certainly been close. You're only a point away from the top of the standings right now, so it's what we thought last year's team was going to be. It's just this year.
Exactly. Plus, I love the rookie Vaseline. He's been out.
Yeah, Vasely's been unreal so far. Him and Joe Simmons for the Moonlanders are two of those rookies who have just been ridiculous on offense. But, Alex, Axel Domitian is back.
The GOAT himself.
And it's amazing the night and day difference your team has had with him back in the line. Because last year, obviously, finishing 15th. And now, with him back so far at the midway point of the season, sitting 5th in the standings, what does he mean to this team?
Domitian is the backbone of the Toxic Slapper, I'm the Toxic Kings. Sorry, old name. Back when Domitian first came in. He definitely just brings the whole team together. It lets the defensemen know, hey, I should still try as hard as I can, but if it were still to happen, they get past me, I have this fucking beast behind me. So
it certainly helps knowing that you've got one of the best of all time behind you, and he's still holding up to that even in his final season.
Oh yeah, he's second, I think, in Amazing
He's
saves,
either second
second or
or
first?
tied for first, I believe. I think. Let's see. Quick look at the stats here. Looking, it's saying tied for first in amazing saves with Irvi Sevilla of Cleveland.
Yeah,
So,
he's been doing pretty well this season too.
yeah. And granted, we do know with some of the rule changes this year, it has not been as easy for the goalies. Smaller equipment has definitely made it harder to stop the ball sometimes, but he's still on a tear. 21 amazing saves in 15 games so far.
Oh yeah,
Tied first. Like, the man never ceases to amaze. Even coming back after a year off, with rules now less favorable to goaltenders, he's still absolutely
he's
carrying
still a
it.
goat. It's awesome.
He really is. Easily a first ballot Hall of Famer once he's eligible. He might honestly be. Honestly, at this point, I think there's a good argument to say that he is the greatest player to ever play the game of ice ball.
Oh yeah, and I'm glad to have him.
I'd imagine.
He's won me one championship, so he's good with me, and he's definitely in my Hall of Fame.
I could definitely see you guys gearing up for a potential second one this year as well. With how
I'm hoping. We're having some rough patches. We just had an injury, and when he comes back, we hopefully we'll definitely get back up there.
Speaking of injury, Quinn, with Miguel Arellano out of the lineup for a few games, the defense still seemed all right. Like, there wasn't a huge difference between Arellano and I believe it was Faber who came into the lineup.
Yeah.
But what does your team need to do to get back on track? Because right now they're playing well, they're just not. It doesn't seem like they're finishing games, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we had a pretty tough schedule these past couple of weeks. A lot of the teams we were playing were some of the strongest teams in the league. But I am thinking about changing some training regimens, maybe swapping out, maybe putting Faber in full time instead of replacing Arellano. As for injury, I might swap that and see how that works.
And for those of you listening at home, don't be alarmed for the random car sounds in the background. Our man Shiv is just on the job right now, so there'll be occasionally the sounds of commerce, which is a wonderful thing.
He's on his way. He's on his way back home from
from Cleveland.
From Cleveland.
Yeah, bro.
It's a long drive from Cleveland to Bombay.
Got one of those fancy Jesus trucks.
Starts floating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off there, Quinn. I just wanted to make sure people
I basically had said everything. Maybe playing around with the roster a bit, creating some new training regimens. Seeing what's there.
Something to mix it up because, yeah, obviously right now, whatever the team is doing isn't quite where it's helping them play competitively.
And we have a negative 5 goal differential. And
which being in 16th with only a -5 when teams like the Mallards are ahead of them with like a -15, like that is impressive to say the least.
Yeah.
All right, and the next question was going to be for Shiv, but I'm not sure if he's like able to at the moment.
Hello.
You able to or not?
Yeah.
All right, so along the same line here of injuries. This year, though, as opposed to being one of the most hurt teams in the IIA, your team stayed relatively healthy so far through the first half of the season. Has that been the big difference between last year's squad and this year, is just being able to keep your starters on the rink the whole time?
Yeah, that's a major factor. That's honestly one of the biggest factors. Because, last year we had either Garland or, was it Reggie or somebody?
It was one of them. I think it was probably Garland.
Yeah, and he has honestly been lacking in terms of offense this year, but having Vaseline there is really helping out. So,
yeah, I mean, he's had one hell of a season so far. Bringing up the individual stats real quick. He's a man
I'm pretty sure
who
he has like 19 goals in like 15 games, which
is
is
up to 21, which I believe ties him for the league lead, if I'm not mistaken.
yep.
Ties him with fellow rookie Joe Simmons on the Moonlanders. It's been a good year for rookie goal scorers. Couple of them
How?
up at 21.
What's the top goal scorer right now?
Well, it's a tie between Simmons and Osawik at 21.
So
Also in the realm of competition, Sunhay's Flower Quest and the Bullworms is at 19. Zubara on the Dictatorships at 19. Kukuk for the Zamboners are at 19. Toxic Kings, Kasembo Mwanji's up to 20. I think that puts him probably second by himself. Then there's a couple other people around like 19, 18-ish, but no one's higher than 21.
21.
So, but now that we've talked about the individual teams a little bit and some of the players, I do want to ask, while we've been talking about injuries, about what happened to Roland Pietryzkowski of the Iceland Ice Ballers. It's a season-ending injury after an incident in his home. And Quinn, I know you were saying you had an interesting take on what you thought happened.
I know I can't be the only one thinking this. However, I don't think it's circumstance that the day after Timko gets shut out 1-0 and the only goal scorer is Pietryzkowski, Pietryzkowski suffers a home invasion and is out for the rest of the season. We all know Timko has not had the most transparent of business plans. Let's say the selling of Energon at the end of last year. So I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that Timko may have something to do with this.
That is, it's quite the accusation that you're levying against him. That's
That
what it
is
sounds
a
like.
pretty big accusation.
But obviously,
I'm just
I
saying
want to hear,
it's not too far-fetched of an idea.
Alex, I want to hear your thoughts on it. Do you think that Quinn's out of his gourd, or do you think he's working off of something?
I don't want to say he's completely out of his gourd, but we also can't rule out the fact of a super fan of Timko maybe going in. Maybe it was Timko, or maybe it was just a fan who didn't like what happened. We've seen it in the past with different leagues and stuff like that.
We've even seen in this one a number of years ago with Otto Zeitman on the then California Communists, a communist fan who, after the game, got frustrated by Zeitman failing to score the game winner, went out and attacked him in the parking lot. I mean, people are very passionate about this game, but sometimes that's a very bad presentation of it.
I mean, Tim isn't here to defend himself, so we can't rule out what did or what did not happen.
Yeah, and that is very true. And that is something we're going to try and fix for our next episode. I would love to have him on because, quite frankly, I think he'd have a few words for Mr. Klepper in particular. But
I'm just saying, last season I wasn't wrong with the with the goalie situation.
That is true. You were the first person to vocalize, at least on air, thoughts about Sigurdsson potentially doing something against the rules, and it turned out that was absolutely the case. I guess we'll have to wait and see whether or not that's the case this time around. But I don't know. I just think it's a stretch to think that one of the teams in our league would be so desperate to move up out of the sand. I mean, they were tied with Iceland for the last spot in the standings at that moment in time. They had been flirting with that relegation zone. I believe they've won a couple in a row now to kind of push away from that. But so has Iceland, which has been really bizarre. Generally speaking, if you lose your top forward, at least on paper your top forward, your offense should get worse. But Garvey Holness, who's come in for the Ice Ballers, has been fantastic. 4 goals in his past 3 games, including a hat trick in his first one and the OT winner in his second one. He's had quite a run since he's come back in. So one of the theories I've also heard was potentially either someone in Garvey Holness's camp was like, hey, my man should be in the starting lineup because he's got the talent, and because of it, tried taking out one of his teammates, which is also incredibly far-fetched. But it's something that's been floating around the rumor mill a little bit. Yes.
So, I don't know if Tim has told you this, but I have recently had a conversation with Tim about the whole situation.
Insider information.
All right. Well, obviously, the next question is, what have you heard?
See, Tim never specifically said it, but he heavily implied it. Here, let me just pull up the conversation log.
Oh boy.
We got receipts.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
If there was one
tasty.
to do it, it would be Timko.
That's some nice herbal tea right now.
Okay, so at first, starting off the conversation. Pietryzk-OW-ski, I don't know how to say that last name. Being suicided.
Let's go with Roland, if that's a problem.
Okay, Roland.
First name.
Roland. So, Roland being suicided in the back of the head. I don't know what being suicided means and how he got that information. But that was his
official report on his injuries. It didn't come out, but it did sound like they were rather severe. I don't know if that's necessarily the right context for it, but I am aware that Roland's injuries were quite severe, and that is why he is out for the season. Sorry, please continue though.
Yes. So then, LOL, do you have something to do with Roland being suicided? Tim responded with, we at Timco would never imagine it. But I did know that he kept unsavory company. He had it coming. End of conversation.
Oh. So it seems like Tim knew something.
Kept unsavory company and had it coming. Okay. That,
Win, what are your players getting up to?
What are my players getting up to? My players would never. We have too strong a Ukrainian pride to ever commit such a heinous act.
I guess that does beg the question of what does he mean by unsavory company? What does he mean
by being suicided?
That's the most confusing part to me.
It's a shame we can't have Tim on right now because I have so many questions, and I want to know what he is implying with that, because that is dastardly. That's heinous.
Wow.
So that was my conversation. Just to let you guys know, I did ask for Tim's permission for that conversation. He said he sent it to you, Alex, and then you have plans.
Oh?
Well,
Alex?
That's me, Austin.
I must say, as my role as Commissioner of the League, I have zero involvement with whatever is happening here.
No, I don't think he's implying that you did have something to do with it. I think he's saying that the conversation that me and him had was being sent to you.
Oh, okay. I'll have to keep an eye out for that.
Well, I was about to say, is the commissioner getting bought out right now?
I was about to say, that would be a bad look on my part, especially with it being one of our league's major sponsors. That would just be pretty lowbrow. I would not dare to do such a thing. I have put far too much time and effort into this league to go down in a corruption scandal with one of our sponsors. I would do no such thing. But I think
creator of the league, I think corruption is the least of your worries.
Yeah, sure. Ideally, though, we'll try and get Tim on for the next episode, and we'll try and get some answers here because that it leaves too much to the imagination, and I'm worried about what happens if I start speculating here. But
I'm worried what's going to happen if we don't start speculating.
Also,
That's why I always start by speculating.
Okay.
You always lead with speculation and then get into it.
Like, what's her name? What's the judge's name? Like Nancy Grace. The one who just accuses everyone wildly until something sticks.
Oh. I know who you're talking about. I don't remember her name.
Yeah.
It's something, though.
Quinn's like, roll up, make accusations, leave.
Honestly, that's an OP strat.
It really is. So we'll try and have Tim on for the next one to get to the bottom of what's going on here. But that said, we probably do need to keep rolling. So we'll take a quick look now at the standings and just do a quick rundown to see where teams are sitting here at the halfway point of the season. Sitting at the top, two teams who really I was surprised to see up there, but for different reasons. One, just because there's such a team that's been plagued by poor results that I wasn't expecting to see in there. And then one who I think is definitely overperforming, that being the Bone Crushers and Ice Chickens, respectively. Looking at the Ice Chickens, like, this is a team who really, I think, is turning a lot of heads by being 11-4 right now. The core of that team is aging, for sure. Like, if we were to take a look at that squad, they're, like, top players, really. Like, in goal, you have Manu Dinesha, who's in his 4th season. Hansel Roscoe's in his 3rd. On defense, Nanjala Afolabi is up into her 3rd season now. Like, this isn't a particularly young team, but they keep finding ways to win, despite many people's best predictions, I guess is the best way to put it.
Well, it seems like with the Ice Chickens that they're 1 second, hold on, let me pull it up because when Ninjala got injured, they lost those 2 games he was out in a row.
And some of them weren't even pretty. I think the one was like a 5-1 loss or something like that. Like, they really cratered without Afolabi in the lineup.
So it looks like he has a pretty strong defense, and as soon as that goes away, he doesn't really have that core. He doesn't really have what's putting him up there. So it looks like his defense is really helping him out with the long game instead of getting what most owners are doing, which is putting a lot into their offense instead of their defense.
It's an interesting way to build a team, especially when it's felt like the past couple seasons, the model has been to build from either goaltending and then offense, or offense and goaltending. But it's nice to see that some teams are starting to put a renewed emphasis on their defense. And that is one team who's done that with the other top team. And the Bone Crushers. The Bone Crushers, with rookie Liliana Boone in there, even with the suspension, was absolutely unreal. I mean, I want to bring it up real quick because I don't want to misquote how stupid good Liliana Boone's been so far. Yeah, in 12 games, she's got 9 goals, 10 shot blocks, and 46 defensive pressures. Like, it's absurd.
Yeah, it seems to be the running theme for the organization right now is if you have a strong defense, you can do well with like a level 3 offense, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and it's definitely for the couple teams that's really been the case where if you have a decent anchor behind you, the offense can kind of run through, especially if you start getting offensive support from your defensemen. A great example of that is, where are they? I was just looking at them. Scrolling up again. So just looking at them. Well, I mean, the Bone Crushers between Boone and Camacho for a combined 11 goals so far. Another one is the Loan Sharks, who are finally starting to get back on solid ground again. Bjornheimer and Figueroa, who was always regarded as one of the top pairs in the league.
Even in Bombay with Batu.
Yeah, I mean, Batu the Lemur King. A man always in the conversation for league MVP with just how ridiculously good and talented that he is.
Also, the Bullworms. Tim Jank and Vassal are doing really well for them.
Yeah.
Especially six goals between them.
And when you can get that offensive support from your defense, it really starts pushing your team forward, I feel like, at least personally from what I've seen so far. Just like that was one thing I noticed with the Moonlanders a couple games ago before their trade and lineup change. The two defensemen they had combined through the first 28 combined games, 14 each, had one goal between the two of them. And they kept losing these close games. Like 7 of their 10 losses had come by a goal. I'm like, if you just get a little bit of support from your defense, just even a handful of more goals, you might have won a couple of those games. But going farther down the standings, we go from the top. And we now, like that middle pack, I would say, like the mid-tier playoff teams, you have the Soviet-Russian Comrades, Bombay, and the Toxic Kings. 2 of which are in this call. We talked about you guys' teams pretty extensively. And the Comrades, they've just been a pretty solid team so far, especially offensively. They're a team who really doesn't rely on defensive pressures, but their offense carries them through a lot of these games. And then we get to kind of the pack, as I'm calling it, which is like fringe playoff and just outside of it, because there's a lot of teams still hovering right in that territory. Anyone from like the Bullworms on down till, I guess technically the Mallards, but realistically they're probably not going to make the playoffs. But teams like the Bullworms, the Loan Sharks, the Rubber Duckies, the Dictatorship, who started horrendously and are now finally starting to bounce back, starting 1-4-2, but now they've won 5 of their last, I want to say like 8 or so. Yeah, I mean, they've obviously Timco's up to 6-8-1 after being 3-8-1 at the time of the Pietryzkowski incident. Kind of interesting that they haven't lost yet since their 1-0 shutout loss to the Ice Ballers. And just something interesting, I guess. The Ice Ballers, 5-8-2, have won 2 of their last 3 since Pietryzkowski has gone down. And looking toward the bottom of the standings with like the Moonlanders and the Russians, both teams who I'd argue are playing better than a few of the teams ahead of them, just haven't had the results. Because I would argue, just with looking at like goal differential and the way some of these teams have played these games, the Moonlanders and the Russians are a far more complete team than the Mallards, Halfwits, or Ice Ballers. They just haven't had the result. But they're only a couple points off. I think time will probably correct that if they keep playing the way they are. But probably still too early to tell.
Something interesting I'm seeing is we're having a lot more ties this year, I feel like.
Really?
Well, we're Soviets with 2, Bombay with 1, me with 2, Cleveland with 1, Bullworms 1, Dictatorship 3, Timco 1, Ice Ballers 2, Halfwits 2, Mallards 2, and then the Russians with 1. So I feel like there's just it seems to be more even than I've seen it in the past.
It does feel like there's a wider, I would say I definitely agree there's a wider distribution of teams that have overtime losses. That said, I can't necessarily agree that there's been more, just because I remember the Comrades last year were ridiculous. I think they finished the season with like 8 overtime losses.
Didn't they start 0-5?
I wasn't that extreme, but I think at one point they were like,
no, that was my team.
Oh,
I started 0-5.
Just tanking everything. Yeah, no, I remember the Bulwark. I mean, literally 2 straight overtime losses at the start of last season is what caused the Comrades to both fire their coach and make a trade because they were so pissed that they lost back-to-back games in overtime to the Tyrants, which now with the power of hindsight, rightfully frustrated since the Tyrants were the ones that ended up being relegated at the end of the season. Speaking of relegation, Quinn, I'm going to ask you because your team currently sits in the hot seat, granted only by a point. But do you think that that's a possibility this year? Or do you think you're going to turn it around and get out of the danger zone there?
I'm confident in my team's ability to turn it around. I think the new training regimens I'm coming up with and the roster changes will help us get out of the slump that we've been in for the past couple of weeks.
Speaking of slump and roster changes, real quick, I want to talk about the trade that was just made between the Dictatorship and the Moonlanders, sending Hawatha Yu to the Moonlanders and Jimmy O'Neill to the Dictatorship. And Shiv, are you still with us, buddy? Because I would like to ask you a bit about this if you're there.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Cool. So Jamie O'Neill, if I do remember correctly, was on your team at one point, right?
Yes, I'm pretty sure she was on my team for season 5 and 6, or 6 and 7.
Okay.
I think it was 2 seasons though.
So you'd be an accurate judge of this then, just because O'Neill's been on your team before. What are the Dictatorship getting with adding Jamie O'Neill?
Well, for starters, she has a hard work ethic, so she'll always be, or he will always be, competing. But what I see in the trade is the one training point, which can be extra helpful for the Dictatorship, considering that we have allowed people to change positions this year.
Yeah.
So
I could definitely see that being used.
Yeah, so that is helpful for his development into either an offensive or defensive player. Because I know I played him mostly on defense whenever he was on my team, and a good goalie for a time being as well.
Yeah,
but
I forgot O'Neill played stopgap goalie for a little while.
Yeah, but he was never really an offensive player for me.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his career stats so far, it's kind of clear where the distribution lies as far as usage. 4 career goals, 28 career shot blocks, 20 career amazing saves. And granted, that's before entering this season. But so far this season, only 1 goal with the Moonlanders and another 9 shot blocks to go with it. So seems like a pretty solid defensive option if that's what they want to do. The Moonlanders obviously retooling a bit, adding Hawatha Yu on defense, moving long-time first forward Raymond Vaynerchuk to defense, and bringing in the rookie Tarazu Okami on the offense. And their new look offense did pretty well. Shut out the Mallards 4-0 in their debut on Friday. I guess we'll have to see if that maintains for the rest of the season or not. But now, as we near the trade deadline, this will be the last thing we're probably talking about today, so we'll go around the horn real quick. Alex, as we near the trade deadline and the playoffs, do you think this is the lineup you're going to enter the postseason with if you make it? You're in I'm assuming you'll probably will because you're in a decent spot for it at the moment. But is this the lineup you're looking to go in there with, or are you looking to add something before the playoffs here?
I'm pretty sure this lineup that I have is pretty set. If I can find maybe a defenseman, I would go with it. But for right now, all my players are doing really well. I just need my injury to come back, and then we'll be in a pretty good spot.
I know that what's her face is selling a good bench player right now that has a max potential of 3. If you're interested in that.
It's
Ian, the Bushfires, is looking to maybe part ways with someone. Is that who we're talking about? The most recent one, I think?
Yeah.
I'll take a look into it. But for right now, it's my lineup's looking pretty good. So
Quinn, you find yourself on the other end there. Do you think you'll be selling off any pieces at the deadline for future assets, or are you too close to the relegation zone to start selling off pieces, you think?
I know that I need to start investing in some younger offensive players as Pietryzkowski ages a bit. He's been a great asset for my team, but I know his time in the league is coming to an end, and I need to look to the future.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a stalwart of that team ever since they were founded, really. But now in his fourth career season, his time probably is coming to a close pretty soon. I would say either this year or next year at the latest, barring some crazy circumstances. But that I think would be a big step. Do you have a couple of young forwards in Williams and Hokey, but neither
Yeah.
like the game breaking talent that you'd like to see from like a Pietryzkowski. So looking for a defenseman from Pavic, looking for a forward maybe for Quinn, or at least a future forward. Shiv, you looking at staying pat with your squad? Do you like where you're at, or do you think you'll be adding something in the future?
Honestly, I am solid on every position. I'm pretty sure I have 5 level 5s on offense, even though Vaseline is a level 3. Him and Marvin Martian. Marvin Martian is a great offensive guy,
it
so he
seems
helps
like
with that
Martian's really gotten to Osawike and really gotten him
end going.
in the
Yeah,
right direction. Yeah.
given the
Are you any bit worried about the age of your team? Because like you have 2 guys who are in their 5th season and 2 guys who are in their 4th season. Do you think this is like the last real run that you're going to have of it?
No, I don't think so. Because what's it? But I still have Batu for 1 more year, and he's always been a great player. I'm pretty sure it's German who's retiring, and
It
Hayes.
likely will be him and Hayes. Yeah.
As you already know, Alex, I designed my team to be very, very, very balanced. Well, not balanced, but like age friendly when it comes to
That is
retirement.
true. There is a decent blend. I'm looking at it, and while you do have a fairly older starting lineup with those 2 out and 2 rookies probably coming in next year, if you have both of your picks,
Yeah.
that would definitely balance it out a bit.
Yeah. Right now I'm pretty sure I have all my younger players on the bench, and
Yeah.
if one player on my starting lineup goes down, I have the training points necessary to at least make it make do with our bench players.
All right. Well, that's probably where we're going to wrap it up. Anyone have any final thoughts they want to share with the ice ball world before we wrap up for today?
I want to know what suiciding is.
Well, we'll have
Or getting
hopefully
suicided.
We'll hopefully have Tim on the show next time so he can explain what that means.
It made no sense to me.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice of words, especially when it was someone who broke into Pietryzkowski's home. God, I have so many questions.
Does he mean like a suicide bomber, or
I'd
did they
certainly
ever
hope
find
not.
a suspect?
See,
So
I
the event
imagine
is
what I
currently under
imagine is
investigation, but as it currently stands, that information has not been released to the general public.
Interesting. That's so all right. Tim's Tim. I can't do anything about it.
what I imagined was the home invasion happening, and then Roland deciding, you know what, it's my time to go. It's just my time to go. And just,
yeah, I don't know about that.
that's the problem with Tim's wording.
Yeah,
And the whole situation altogether.
God, I can't wait for next episode if we have Tim on. I need to have him on this next episode.
Tim will be Tim.
Yes,
You already know Tim's not gonna give any answers besides What happened happened.
Maybe we can hit him with a bit of a dab of whiskey on the lips before we start, and maybe he'll be a little more open to talk about what's going
Some
on.
truth serum.
Oh, I got you, fam. If
Alright.
I'm home.
Honestly, you should just go over to Tim's and be like, "Hey, I've got a great idea. Let's drink and then go on the podcast." And they'll sell all of the information, and it'll be fantastic. But for Alex, Quinn, and Shiv, I am Alex Gagnon. This has been the official IIA podcast, and I hope you all have a pleasant day.
Goodbye. Took a shower, so I'm like,
I hear this call is now being recorded.
Yes, it is, because
so don't say anything dumb.
yeah,
Mr. Poopy Butthole.
Butthole.
Dog butthole.
No,
Look at all
Mr.
those
Poopy
dog-
Butthole.
Here we go. This is what I want.
No, it's Mr. Poopy Butthole. Y'all are getting
Nah,
it wrong.
Have you ever heard of the world's greatest mic check?
Oh, fuck.
No.
Where is the Amazon locker?
There's a podcast I listened to once, and they did a mic check, and it was dog butthole. Look at all those dog buttholes. Pink fuckering dog buttholes. And their producer's like, I never want to hear that ever again.
Okay, so apparently the package thing is inside, so I will be going inside the right now.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
I will not ask you any questions first then. But we've been going long enough with no actual directions. So this is the official IIA podcast. I'm your host, Alex Gagnon. And with me today, we got 3 guests from 3 different parts of the country right now. From about